Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Paranormal, the New Normal. I'm your host, as always, Jeremy, here trying to make the world seem more normal. Over 300 episodes, and that hasn't happened, as you all are darn aware of. So, what can I say? It's not meant to happen, I don't think, at this point, but we keep going on, normal or not. The world is what we want it to be. But I am pleased to announce tonight, though, folks, that I have another returning guest. I know there's been a lot of them lately, and they all come to me, so I love it. I love when I have my original guest from the first year of this come back and want to talk some more. And whether you remember this one or not, you need to go back far enough if you don't, I swear. But it is Tina Erwin, the ghost helper herself, and author of now 9 books, I am proud to say. Welcome back, Tina.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. I'm really thrilled to be here. It's always so much fun when we get together.
It is. I honestly, we should try to do it more than once every 3 years. But I know we're both busy podcasters.
We
I
are.
think I believe you're on. Would you say 90 to 100 a year, which is outstanding. And I do it, but I actually am a podcaster, so I couldn't imagine guesting on that many. Oh my god, it's a
Well,
lot
I
of
do
talk.
have my own podcast, Ghost Helper.
True. I've,
So, and it's on a YouTube channel. So, I'm doing my own as well as being a guest. So, I'm trying to
uh,
balance that.
trust me, I try to bounce 3 kids, 3 podcasts, and still trying to guest on one here and there. I don't get to do it too often anymore, but I miss those days. Guesting is so much more fun because you don't have to prepare or do anything. It's just show up and have a good time, which I love. But
Yeah.
folks, Tina just finished her 9th book. Well, okay, this email's from a while ago, so it's probably out now. But
Oh, yeah.
it's called Psychic Children, Psychic People, which as soon as I saw the title, I was immediately drawn to this. Like, okay, now you have my attention. So please, Tina, tell us what made you want to write this book.
I wanted to write this book because I've seen so many parents of all different faiths come to me in hushed whispers saying, I think my child needs drugs because they see ghosts. But you see ghosts. Are you on drugs? It's like, no, no. This is sometimes the paranormal is your normal. Not just because it's a great catchphrase, but because it's the reality. And this entire book is physics based because the book explains the physics behind why a child can see a ghost or a grandmother they never met, or they're walking along and they see a person who needs help but that person's dead and the parent has no idea what to do. And my goal was, you don't need a medium, you can help your child yourself. And if you can do that, then what that means is you two are now independent and you're in a process of profound spiritual service because that enables the parent to understand how to partner with their child for the greatest good. That's really the goal of the book.
Which
And
is a
if you're psychic yourself, what you can also do to be helpful.
I mean, because obviously in this day and age, especially, kids are going through a lot. There's so much more that kids have to go through and put up with nowadays in society and school and family and everything than we did when we were younger. I I honestly look back at my childhood now and I look at my kids and I'm like, God, I had it easier. I didn't have all these distractions to take my mind off what I was supposed to be doing. These kids today, all they have is distractions, and I can't imagine being a psychic when you're a child. That has to be a huge distraction from everything else because that would get my attention if I saw this person floating there that's not really there, like, or not really there for everybody to see. But so I mean, it's got to be a. It would. I can't imagine. I really can't imagine. everybody knows me in this show knows I don't have any experiences when I was a kid, so I can't imagine what it's like to actually be a kid that can see these things or talk to ghosts, see ghosts. It's hear them. I mean, it's I don't know. I can't imagine, but you wrote the book, so obviously you can imagine. And did I read that you actually had 70 case studies for this?
70 different case studies. And I talk about everything from clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairaudience, which is a psychic smell, which is really, really tough to deal with. Uh, plant psychics, animal telepaths. How do you deal with the dark side? What if your child sees something evil or something terrifying, or you have the child says something is attacking them and you don't know whether to believe it, but there are actual marks on their body? Or what if your child has telekinetic abilities? What is telekinesis? And how can an 11-year-old throw things across a room? So the reason there are so many case studies is I felt very strongly people had to understand what these parents have gone through, or if you're a psychic, what you go through. You can't tell anybody, or you feel like you can't tell anybody. Your faith tells you that you're crazy or your child's possessed by the devil. What if your child has the ability to heal? They can touch an animal or a person, or they just have this energy go through them. They don't even know what they're doing. What if you have an 8-year-old who can remote view, see through walls and doors across thousands of miles in real time? There's different forms of remote viewing. That case was real time, it's verified. So if you're the parent and you have this enormous variety of psychic abilities that your child could possess, and then you have children who have multiple abilities. They can remote
We,
view, they see the ghost, they they have abilities with their hands. Then what? Oh my gosh.
I mean, to all the ones out there with multiple abilities, to me, my X-Men, I can definitely use the help. Trust me, I have a lot of things going on. I could use some people with a lot of different abilities, but it's, I mean, it. Oh, okay, you hit on a lot of different things there, so I'm gonna back up to the first thing I thought of when I heard it, which I mean, well, where are we? Watching this remote viewing one's got me kind of stuck. I can't even think what the heck else I wanted to say. So a kid who can remote view for thousands of miles in real time. That sounds like a sci-fi movie. It doesn't sound like real life even.
Well, when you understand remote viewing, it's not it's not that far fetched, especially if you can do it yourself. So it's not that far fetched. But if you're a parent and you didn't know there was such a thing, now it's really freaky. Or a child who's a telepath. What do you do with that? It completely freaks people out. Or child who's a medical intuitive can see inside a body. Or they're a medical intuitive and they can give healing to the illness that they see in the body. That's why there are 70 case studies because you have to be able to see what people are going through and the sheer volume of experiences people are having. Plus, the book has part one is all the different kinds and all the different situations. But part two is all the tools that you need and an explanation of the third dimension, the fourth dimension, and the fifth dimension, and how to wrap your brain around each one. And when you have psychic ability, you're now involved in the process of quantum entanglement and string theory. And I needed people to understand the physics that go with this.
Ooh, which
It's a hard book to write.
I was gonna say. I'm like I'm almost grunting hearing about it. I'm like, ew, physics. I'm like, I didn't take that in high school, and I don't want to learn it in my 30s. For God's sakes, it's yeah, physics is a whole nother realm. I ain't no Sheldon Cooper. I don't do string theory. I mean, I am all for multiversal theories. I believe in a multiverse. I should say. I believe in a multiverse. There are definitely different dimensions on this around us on this planet. So I 100% believe in all that because that's where all the cryptids come from, we believe, supposedly. But, so, all right, well, I think the best place to start out for this book is how can a parent tell if their child has abilities of any kind? Like, what are some of the warning signs they should look out for?
Your child tells you innocently that the man standing next to you is hungry, or the man looks like a bad man. I had a pair of, a woman had twin boys, and her children only saw evil things. They saw devils, they saw people who were terrifying. And these children were afraid all the time. They didn't want to go into a room or it was cold. And you have the typical parent conundrum. You know, one parent says, let's put this kid on drugs. They must be psychotic. And they're lying. The other parent says, well, you know, my child's never lied. Why would they lie? And, you know, overnight they became psychotic and they're 6 or 7 years old. That doesn't happen. It's like the child, Haley Joel Osment, the role he played in The Sixth Sense with
Yep.
Bruce Willis. It's a very accurate portrayal. He wakes up one day and he can do this. It's literally that bizarre. You wake up and all of a sudden you can see this ghost coming at you. Or you go into a hospital and you feel this like this hot swarm of souls coming at you. It has happened to me. And it if you don't know how to deal with it and you don't have the tools, it's absolutely destroying. I mean, you feel like you're just going to collapse with it. So the goal was to help a parent understand your child isn't lying. This is a psychic ability. It goes back millennia. It goes back as far as anybody can imagine. And when I explain the concepts of string theory, it's in such simple terms that all of a sudden you see the world differently when you understand it. For instance, the easiest way to help understand this is I'm in the third dimension. You and I are in the third dimension, and it's
Yep.
tactile and it's got solid form. When you are in the fourth dimension, there's no time and space or gravity. That's why it looks like ghosts float. They're not grounded because there's no gravity. You don't even see their feet.
Very
And
true.
so, whatever a ghost is thinking about, they're in front of the person. They travel with the speed of thought because there's no atmosphere, there's no resistance. If you were to take the concepts of string theory, we're all connected to everyone else through what are called akka cords, or these little tiny threads that connect us all. Take the mesmerizing fear of a theory and bring it down to reality, which is we're all connected through all of these strings, and our thoughts travel along these strings in the fourth dimension. When you say a prayer, a fervent prayer, you're asking God to help someone. Your prayer is instantly in the heaven world because it goes through the fourth dimension where there's no resistance. It's instantaneous. So if you're going to remote view a location and you have coordinates, you're instantly there because you're moving through the fourth dimension. So if you're a child and you see a ghost, you're seeing between dimensions. It's it's
Which
a it's so fascinating.
it really is. I mean, it really is, and yes, that is why ghosts appear to be floating people. That one I did know. I understand the fourth dimension to some degree. I've been told about enough in the show enough to know it to some degree. And see, when you talk about those threads that go between people and the thoughts transverse on, that's where the idea of like 6 degrees of separation comes in. And that's why it feels like you know people when you never met them because you probably did tap into one of their thoughts possibly at some point, or maybe you tap into their thoughts all the time. You just don't realize it. Maybe it's just like a subconscious type of thing you do, which I never thought about that till now, but that makes a lot of sense actually. I mean, am I off? Am I off bounce here, or is this making
There,
sense to you
there's
too?
There's two concepts. The string is called an aka chord, aka, and the experience you have with the energy that travels on that string creates your akashic records.
That makes
Those
sense.
that is the creation of your akashic record. That string, this is really going to be kind of mind stretching a little bit. You can recognize someone or have that connection or string from one life to another. So you may have known that person in a past life. So you can feel that energy of that string that you had with them. So there's that connection. There's also something called the mind belt. And an example is that when the Wright brothers supposedly learned all of the physics and the dimensions required for lift and manipulating all the ailerons and all the things that go in with flight, that knowledge at that moment in time was already in the mind belt. And there were several different individuals who are coming up with the same thing as the Wright brothers. They just got there first. There were gentlemen in France who were literally days behind the Wright brothers. So your concept of people can ping around the world, that knowledge can sit in what is considered the mind belt that circumvents the entire planet. So you literally can tap into, through the fourth dimension, the access of that mind belt. It's also how prayer works.
Well, how is that how prayer works? I mean, are there, well, I mean, okay, this is going to go down a wormhole. I already know it. But, I mean, because people usually tend to believe they're praying to a god of some kind or angels, even some would believe. And, I mean, it kind of boils down to what you believe in for that to work, wouldn't it? Or, I mean,
Well, no, it's basic energy. It's the physics of energy. So when all thought is energy, all thought is energy. So when you think something, you are creating. It's why, ironically, in the body, the place that uses the most insulin in the body is the brain. It's not the pancreas, because the brain is going through so many different processes. It uses an astonishing amount of energy. That's why if you're doing remote viewing or you're working with a client, when you're done, you're really tired. You use so much brain power in parts of the brain you wouldn't have even imagined you could use. When you pray, you're building up a charge of energy, sending it along the aka cords to a person or to God. So you're sending an energetic pulse. Does that make sense?
yeah, it makes sense. But, I mean, okay. I'd have to imagine that God would be tapped into the Akka chord since he probably created them technically. I mean, by like I said, this all goes into what you believe as well. If you're gonna believe in it, I mean, to believe that the Akka chords connect. I know I'm going down a wormhole, but if you to believe that the Akka chords connect to a God, you have to believe in a God. Otherwise, you're because it's manifestation at a certain point with your beliefs. If I'm not mistaken.
Well, if you look at it just slightly differently, we are each a creation of the divine. We had to come from somewhere. We had to be a concept, an energy that was available to participate in mortal life again and again. We are created in the image of God. When you look at it from that point of view, we automatically have a divine connection. I suspect that many times we simply forget that. And you don't need a building of wood and stone. Anywhere you wish to have a conversation with the divine, I mean, in the in one of the teachings of Christ, whenever open up a piece of wood, cut a block of stone, wherever you are, I am there. It's the total concept of the total creation and all of it being connected. That's the element of the divine without becoming
But
too complicated.
yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. Uh, It definitely does. I mean, it's the way I was brought up to think that 100% makes sense, and that everything that fills out completely. I mean, whether I guess it doesn't really matter because I mean, even if you believe that God is extraterrestrial in nature, then they still would be connected. It wouldn't make a difference because they're still going to be connected. It doesn't matter what you believe; they're still going to be connected. So it's just whatever you believe in is what's connected, basically, and that's the way you got to think about it. So I mean, because I am a huge believer in reincarnation. I know there's past lives. I've had a reading done on the show actually back, oh god, almost a year ago now. But I had a reading done on the show. Found out my wife and I have been in each other's lives 3 times actually. But um, so yeah, I mean, all this to me is I believe in all this, which I know my to put all this together in my head is it's literally the book I'm gonna write one day. It's just my huge theory of everything, and it's gonna be long and probably very long winded. But I'll get a book at I'll get a ghostwriter to write it down for me. But it's that's my plan is to write that book because I can't. It would take me 20 shows in a row to explain my full theory of everything, and it's just. Nobody wants to hear all that at once. Trust me, nobody does. I don't even. It drives me insane sometimes. But so back to the psychicness of this all, though. What what would you say was the most interesting case study you came across? Like, what was the one that really blew your mind?
I I've had a lifetime of them.
Oh yeah,
I,
I'm
I
aware of
would
that fact.
I would have to say some of the strangest ones are the telekinetic ones.
I had a feeling.
And telekinesis is the ability to move an object from point A to point B with your mind. Your hands are down, you could tie up their hands, and that person could move the object. The interesting thing is, in every case that I've had, the telekinetic psychic was a child or a teenager, usually, 12 to 16 range. And in one of them, there were, compact discs flying across the room and pencils and all kinds of things. And I got a call from a lady in the Sacramento area, and she was just freaking out. They were literally ducking as stuff is coming at them. So I was in San Diego, so I reviewed her house, and she thought there were ghosts doing it. There weren't ghosts. There were some thought forms there. They're pretty easy to dispatch. But the telekinetic child was angry in 100% of the cases I've had, and I have not had a lot of cases, it's extremely rare. There's always a divorce involved every single time. And
Hmm.
there's rage inside the child. And in this case, the parents were divorced. The middle child was staying with his dad sometime. His dad's girlfriend had 2 teenagers. They were playing Dungeons and Dragons and they were experimenting. So he would come home and he was learning how to throw this energy. And once I explained this to her, she was livid at me and said, "My son wouldn't do that. How dare you accuse my son?" I said, "Ma'am, that's what I saw. He's angry. He learned it from these other kids. He's doing this because he's mad at you over the divorce. The thought forms I removed, but this is something you have to deal with your son. I can't stop this." And she hung up on me. A week later, she calls back. She says, "I don't know how you knew all this, but he every single thing you said was true. He did learn it. He was doing it. He is angry. He apologized, and it never happened again." In another case, there was a 10 or 11-year-old girl who was, again, a divorced parent. And she had an electrical charge of so much rage. She could literally project it through an object and throw it across the room. It could be in a classroom. She was throwing heavier and heavier things. And the mother was at her wit's end. I worked with them for 3 weeks. And this was a really psychological issue. It wasn't that they needed some great and mighty medium to solve the problem. This was an issue of love and parenting. This child, again, angry over the divorce, angry at having to split her time between parents, angry if her mother gave any attention to anybody else, including her job. She was calling her mother home from work 3 times a day. You can't make a living doing that. No employer is going to
No.
keep you. And she had power over her mother. And finally, I sat down with the mom and said, "You need to put your big girl panties on and tell her to knock this CRAP off. That you know that she's doing it, you know that she controls it, and you're not going to tolerate it, and to stop it right now. Change your voice, get mad." And she did, and it never happened again. And so, yes, it's a psychic phenomenon. But there's not a real mystery about it. It has to do with the buildup of electrical charge of anger. Do you remember in the movie Ghost when Patrick Swayze is in the subway and he talks to this, great character actor who is so angry? Remember that? He says to Patrick Swayze, "If you want to kick that can, you have to be angry." And he propels it down the way. It's the charge of anger. Even in that film, they accurately explained it.
Yeah, which I actually I've only seen parts of Ghost. I know that scene. Actually, I actually have seen that scene. I watched it back in the day when it was on TV all the time. I just never actually saw the whole thing. So, but yeah, and see, it's funny because, well, I guess not so funny, but I am a child of divorce. My parents got divorced when I was in middle school, and I was never angry about it. That was the thing, though. I guess because I was older, I'm assuming would be the main reason. And just I understood it was for the best because my parents were toxic together. So I understood it was the best outcome of any scenario. And so I mean, it's the rage, it's the anger, I guess, that really would explain it. Because otherwise, I might have actually experienced something like that if they actually angered me. Who knows? It could have happened, but it it didn't. It definitely didn't. But yeah, it makes sense. Emotions are powerful things, and manifestation is a very real thing. So if we're
Exactly.
manifesting those angry emotions, then yeah, I can. I mean, there's a reason. There's a reason why when people are having a bad day, it's usually because they're angry about one little thing, and they keep pushing on it and pushing on it in their head, and they're not letting go of that little thing. And then everything's just gonna snowball because you're manifesting your day to just get worse. Like you got think positive and positive will happen. That's what I've been told by many mediums, and that's what I tend to follow as like a guideline in life. Just think positive, and positive outcomes will happen naturally.
Exactly. And that, snowballing is if you were to look at it as a snowball of sometimes really toxic energy. For instance, there's a wonderful book by Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. And in the back, she has all of these illnesses and the spiritual causes, the emotional and spiritual causes of them. And accidents are because of anger. You're angry. So you become magnetic to another angry person and you have an quote accident.
Which,
And
yeah,
it's an interesting, it was a absolutely fascinating concept that she would identify that. And, to be able to get, got 3 kids through high school with no accidents because as things would build up, we would work through every one and working to help them be responsible adults, answering questions, being emotionally present for teenagers can forestall some horrendous situations. You asked me if I had any other very unusual cases. One of them was a case with um, a young woman in a coma, and I was asked to help her somehow. And since I didn't have her parents' permission, all I could do was remote view the accident site because she's in this, coma and they couldn't seem to get her out of it. So I went to the accident site and psychically, and she was there. and I could see through her eyes what had happened in the accident. She was a passenger, and the driver was, again, another divorce situation, so filled with rage. It was like it blinded him to what was really going on. And so what I ended up doing was, actually, she was there, so I talked to her. I brought in an angel for her, and she said, "I don't understand what happened. I was in the car and now I'm here by the side of the road." Well, remember, her body's in a hospital,
Yeah.
someplace else. But she doesn't understand that she's now, her soul is separated from the mortal frame, but the silver cord is still attached. It's just really a fascinating concept. So I explained to her that only she can decide if she's going to live or die. I brought in an angel to give you comfort, but the angel cannot make the decision for you. If you decide to live and the angel can help you get back to your body, then it's going to be a long road, but you will still be alive. You will have a life to live. And she begged me to. I crossed over a lot of people had died at that site. You always have the dead man's curve. Well, this was actually called that. And so I crossed over everybody else so the place would not be magnetic for accidents anymore. And she begged me. She said, "Can't I go with him? The light is so wonderful." I said, "I cannot do that. You are not dead. I can't cross you over. You must decide. You have to choose." And about 2 days later, she woke up and she made the long journey back to recovery. She would have no memory of the conversation, but
Of course.
somehow she came back. And it was it's very, very interesting when you look at it. I think if anybody has a family member in a coma, send an angel to find the soul and help them make a decision. It's a very simple. I mean, think about how simple that request is.
I mean, well, fortunately, I've never actually known anybody that was in a coma. I mean, I've heard some miraculous stories of people in comas and the things that happen while they're in the comas, or people contacting them while they're in comas. It's mind blowing. What we don't understand about people in comas could fill 5 books at least. It's mind blowing. They're such a hard thing for humans to understand, especially when most humans don't really grasp that spirit is its own entity. They think it's just part of the body. When no, spirits don't even need the body technically, and I could fully believe we'll evolve someday to the point where that's the case, where bodies are no longer a thing even. But I think that's way in the future. I'm pretty sure we're not quite there yet. We're not waking enough for that yet. I don't think as a society, but especially lately. But it's, I mean, I don't know. What do you think what do you think the future could possibly hold, that where the spirit no longer needs a body to occupy, where we could just be
There was an original Star Trek about that, and I think the Star Trek: The Next Generation had several shows regarding these souls who inhabited something where they didn't need a body and they could just project consciousness, and they were gaining more and more and more power. But without the
yeah,
physical body and the limitations it directly imposes and the reality of a physical body, you lose your humanity. When you have that much mind power, it's the Spider-Man concept. You have a lot of responsibility. With each level of psychic ability that you're rising to, you have increasing levels of responsibility, and the need to adhere to spiritual law. You don't want to violate those laws. They make a difference.
make makes sense. And actually, I haven't seen Star Trek in a minute, so it took me a little while to think what episode you're talking about. And then I was like, wait a minute, I know this storyline. Okay, yeah, it's yeah. There's been a lot of ripoffs from that episode on other shows, but yeah, I mean, I guess that would be true to some. Like I said, that's why we need to awaken enough as a society to kind of mature spiritually to the point where I think that could be preventable. Maybe I'm no fortune teller, folks. I can't read the future, so I'm just hypothesizing here. But so would you? I mean, because all the stories you told so far, or all the case studies you talked about so far, is about getting the children to stop using their abilities. What if,
Well,
like,
in psychokinetic, they were hurting people. So, yes,
oh
you
yeah,
want them to stop doing that. When you have a child who can see a ghost, I created a protocol using the crossing over prayer. And, I wrote the crossing over prayer book,
yep,
and it has 88 prayers that help the living and the dead. And it's on my website, they're audiobooks. So you have a 10-year-old and they're seeing a ghost, and you go to a pool party, and maybe somebody drowned in that pool and that little girl's still there. And you see her calling for help in the pool. And you keep looking at the pool, and it's empty. And so the child, tugs on the parent and indicates that there's somebody there. The parent gets out their iPhone, use your technology. Bingo, play the crossing over prayer. And then the child's going to tell you when the angel comes and takes the soul away. They can just give you a thumbs up and a smile. You can make it of enormous spiritual service. Children don't know what to do when death comes. They're looking for an adult to help them. And when you do something as simple, achingly simple as that, you don't need a medium. Nobody around you has to know that it even happened. You can keep it private and do tremendous spiritual service. So that's a really good thing. If you're an animal telepath, I've known several, teenagers who are working with vets. An animal can't tell you what's wrong. And so they bring a psychic in, listen to the animal, and say the animals, I can see this illness inside the animal's body. Eventually, the vet can verify that. Again, great spiritual service. In fact, they had a situation at the San Diego Zoo, I don't know, 30 years ago, where one of the matriarch elephants passed away. Well, the zoo, being efficient, removed the body, the bones, they removed everything very quickly. The elephants freaked out. Elephants are so intelligent, they grieved. And so they couldn't figure out what was wrong, so they brought a psychic in. Psychic said, "Did the matriarch die?" And they said, "Yeah, how could you know that?" And they said, "Well, I heard it from the elephants. They need you to bring the bones back so that they can sway and grieve and cry." And the elephants, tears are coming down, their faces. So think about the service. Or one of the hardest things for a psychic is finding a missing person. I've done it a couple times. It's really hard. But if you're working with someone and you're being conscientious, you're doing huge service. And sometimes it's a sad situation. The person has, in fact, died. But I had a case where a man's uncle was kidnapped in Mexico, and I was asked to see what I could find. I could only tell them what he was wearing, that he was still alive, but the man who was also kidnapped with him had been, in fact, been murdered, and that I felt like this would somehow resolve itself with him living. And all of those things happened. They did find the other guy's body. You can, and so you're doing service. None of these are doing readings. They're
yeah.
not, nobody's doing cards or parlor tricks. And that's the other thing that this book does. It warns parents about the pitfalls. If you know
Mm-hmm.
something's going to be a problem, now you can avoid it and just avoid mountainous problems with that kind of thing. So, yeah, you can do huge service with this.
Exactly. I mean, I've said on the show before, and I'll say it again. I firmly believe every branch of law enforcement should have psychics, clairvoyants, and other people with abilities on the payroll and be working with them on a regular basis. I think the amount of crimes that actually would get solved in this world would be a lot more if they actually embraced it. I mean, I've heard from people. I had a co-host in a previous paranormal show who, during COVID, did remote viewing classes online, and there was a Brooklyn detective, a Brooklyn, New York detective in the class with her, learning how to do it. And apparently, he said the police are considering it more and more. They're looking into this type of stuff more and more to try and use it to help solve cases. So, I mean, I think that door has been slightly opened. it needs to be burst open at this point. And in this age where the internet is just filled with people who are psychics or people with abilities, like take advantage of it, because a lot of these people probably wouldn't even want to get paid. They would probably just be happy to do it for free most of the time because they want to do it. I mean, yes, but a lot of them want to get paid. I'm sure, because it's a living. It's a living, but it's I think it would help the world a lot if they everybody can embrace the spiritual side.
Well, it would. And the problem is, unless you're really really skilled, being able to do use psychic ability on demand is hard. They one of the hospitals in San Diego was using a medical intuitive in the ER to help them with people who were coming in. I can't even imagine how hard that would be, because it's exhausting. You're constantly projecting inside another body. You have to have permission to do that, or someone who has like legal authority. So yeah, a lot of I had a situation. I think this is one of the case studies. It's also in Ghost Stories from the Ghost Point of View, that trilogy of books. And I was asked to remote view some storage units. You see all these orange garage door storage units.
Yep.
And this guy he just said, there's something wrong. No matter what I do, I just don't have a lot of good business. Can you just clear it? It's like, no problem. And it was on the eastern shore of Virginia. You have to cross the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, and it's this quiet, super rural area. And for some reason, he had some storage units out there. So, I'm cleared a bunch of stuff and I'm zipping through each unit. And there is a unit, and I'm seeing this young girl there. I'm thinking, I'm not seeing necessarily a body. I'm talking to her. I get her name, where she went to school, and she doesn't understand what happened to her. I can see there's a rug there, and I'm trying to figure out, is this woman alive or dead? And I brought in an angel, and he shook his head. He's like, she's still living. Can't cross her over. And I got so much information, and my sister helped me. We looked on for missing and exploited children in Maryland and Virginia, and we found her. We found her name. We found her. And she'd been missing like 9 months. And so we gambled and we called the tip line. We didn't say the information came from a psychic, because the first thing they say is psychic information isn't welcome.
Yeah,
So we
unfortunately.
didn't tell them. And we gave them the address and all the places. Now, the guy I did the remote view for, I called him and I said, we made this call to the police because I think there's something, and it's a unit with a number 7 on it. Could be 717 or 27, but the unit has a 7 on it. Well, 24 hours later, the police showed up with cadaver dogs, and they didn't leave. They roped it off, and they found evidence of her, and they found a rug. And my feeling was they wrapped her up in a rug, and it was so terrifying that her subconscious separated from the body, or they drugged her, but something happened and she was separate. That's what I saw. The tip was so good that they got so much information from that storage unit, they were able to find her and a whole bunch of other women about to be shipped off for white slavery in somewhere in the Middle East. And they said it was an amazing tip. They never knew it was me. They have I swore the owner of the storage unit to secrecy. He said, I didn't tell him. I wanted to, but I didn't tell him. And I said, you can't. They don't want anything to do with the psychic. And then they think that the psychic is somehow involved.
Yeah, of course, because I mean, oh, why would you know this information? Because you were there? No, no, no. I mean, it drives me nuts, and I'm guessing this wasn't. I mean, was this recent or was this years ago type thing?
Oh, this was about 20 years ago. You have to remember,
Okay,
the
yeah.
white slavery human trafficking market's been going on
Oh, forever, yeah,
forever,
forever,
a
yeah.
long, long time.
I mean, it's yeah. The reason I asked is because I'm like 20 years. I figured it was something like 20 years ago, and especially back then, it was still it was a joke. For the whole psychic thing was still like considered a joke back then. it's not as today. It's a lot more prevalent in society. A lot more people. Everybody knows somebody who's a psychic nowadays. Like whether it's someone you just know online or someone in your family. There's always
Right.
everybody knows a psychic, whether they're an actual legit psychic or just someone trying to get attention. You got to tell the difference. So you got to be able to tell the difference. And don't ever give people money online, folks, just because they say they'll give you a reading. Don't do it. Just don't do it.
Well, I do these shows and people write to me. I want you to clear my house. And I'll say, you know what? The prayers are on my website. They're absolutely free. If I do it, I charge. And here's the link to what my fees are. But you don't need me. If you just want to clear your house and you think you have a ghost, just use the crossing over prayer. I would say 90% of the time that's what they do, and they don't pay me. It's my service to them. The whole point of the crossing over prayer and the crossing over prayer book, so that you don't need a medium. How
exactly.
hypocritical would I be if I said, "Oh, I'm going to charge you for every one"? I can't. One, I can't. I couldn't do it 24 hours a day. It's exhausting. So give people the tools and let them be independent.
I mean, it's honestly the best way to do things. And for those out there who actually do want to go find someone in person, there is a book out there called The Yellow Brick Road Guide to Psychics, written by Corby Miltlead. It's a very insightful book that points out charlatans versus legit, genuine psychics and clairvoyants and people who know
That's
what they're doing.
also in my Psychic People, Psychic Children book. There's a
There you go.
whole chapter dedicated to how to tell the difference.
Good, but that's information I think that needs to get out there in the world more and more and more because I get the people who fall for these messages. I get, oh, blessings be upon you today, sir. Let me give you a reading. Only $5 today. Yeah,
No, 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 no.
block. If you see those messages, folks, hit the damn block button because
Yeah.
they won't stop. They won't stop messaging you. It's sad. It's just people trying to, and they're not real. They're just people over there. They'll make up a fake message sent to you and then expect you to pay pound $5. Like it's, or they'll make you pay first, and they'll send you the fake message. Either way, it's just going to be a scam, and you're going to be out some money. So it's, I just try to warn against it as often as possible in this show because it's a horrible thing out there these days. It really is. And it gives a bad name to the real ones, which I know a lot of real psychics, a lot of real clairvoyants that have been on my show and that I've met through other shows. And I don't want them getting bad names for what they do because they're miraculous people like yourself who do miraculous things for humanity. So, which actually kind of a side question of this. Is there anything in this book about how to handle skeptics? About how to handle the friends and family
Oh
that
my
want to
gosh.
say you're lying?
Oh yeah, I have a whole section on how to handle skeptics, especially people who are prove it to me. There's no such thing. The standard line is there's no such things as ghosts. So we go back to physics. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. I also have a section that talks about um, Carillion photography, which is developed by a Russian scientist. And it's when you go to the mall and you see somebody take your aura. Well, that's basically Carillion photography, which means you're photographing the energy field. And I describe what happens when he started this. They've actually photographed a soul leaving a body. So we're all going to become ghosts. And when you explain that the energy that animates you has to go somewhere because it's not destroyed, it's as if there's a non sequitur. And they go, well, there can't be. But I'm sorry, I remember getting into trouble in school for asking this question. You can't have physics 101 and then when it applies to the mortal body you decide that it can't be real. You cannot have it both ways. That begins to turn them around, and then you start to talk to them that you can't drive a car and not be psychic. Can't drive any kind of a vehicle, whether it's planes, trains, automobiles, or submarines, which my husband drove for a lot of years, or surface ships, whatever you're driving, you have to feel the ship and feel the sea. If you're a pilot, feel your plane, or something doesn't. How many thousands of times someone said, "Well, something didn't feel right." What are you feeling? You can't quantify it, but it's real for you. So many people have saved so many lives with this that you you literally bring them back to the most simple thing. You're on an LA freeway with 8 lanes of traffic and you've got to pay attention to everything around you. But this car, the guy in the car 2 cars ahead of you, you can feel there's something wrong and you need to avoid him. So you move a couple lanes away or you slow down. And sure as the devil, something happens. So you validated what you were feeling. I have hundreds of stories of men and women who've had that experience.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of those too, and I mean, who doesn't have that every day of their life? I mean, when you feel like you shouldn't pull out in front of this car because if you do, it's just not going to end well. That's intuition. I mean, intuition is at the very minimum of a psychic ability, and it definitely needs to be paid attention to. If you feel like your car's not going to work right that day, 10 to 1, you're going to blow a flat or you're going to do something, and your car's just going to die. It's happened. I've had those days where I'm just like, something's going to happen today with my car. I know it. And I'm driving on my way home from work. And oh, the battery dies halfway home. And you have to sit there and wait for the tow truck or somebody
Exactly.
with jumper cables. So it's aggravating and it's annoying, but bad things happen. I mean, and you got intuition. I mean, just they're funny thing is, you can even know when you're getting fired from a job. You just feel it like that day when you go into the office. You're like your hair stands on end. You get a feeling in the pit of your stomach, and you're like, oh, something's happening today. If you're paying attention, you realize something's gonna happen today. And I've had it happen when I was younger, got fired from jobs. I could easily tell it was coming that day. I almost didn't want to go to work, but that would just make things worse. So might as well go and face the reaper. But at that point, but it's just intuition needs to be followed. I'm a firm believer in that, and I try to listen to my intuition on a daily basis. Sometimes I don't, and I usually regret if I don't. That's for damn sure. But well, I guess. Oh, we're trying to think of the best way to end. Well, actually, okay, a good way to end it in a fun little topic. Take it off a cue on. I'm sure you give parents advice in this book on how the children should deal with dark things they come across that they didn't mean to come across. How should people deal with when they come across? Because there are darker things in this world. I mean, not all ghosts are evil. Not all ghosts have bad intentions, and there are things a lot worse than ghosts in this world. How do people deal with them?
I have several chapters where I explain the nature of evil and what it can look like to an adult or a child. And I think there are an astonishing number of adults who saw them as children, but no one believed them. And I explain there are certain tools that you can use that will protect your child in their room from, frankly, the use of prayer. If you have a lot of ghosts, one of the sweetest tools is the soul train. You tell your child that every night before they go to bed, they say the crossing over prayer and they visualize the soul train, and all the souls are getting on the train. The angel is calling, get on board, and they take them to the heaven world. That was absolutely a miraculous tool for a little girl in Texas. If you have a great deal of, sorry about that, of what you feel are dark things, you can burn a resin called dragon's blood. Incense is worthless. Sage never works. Just Palo Santo, none of that stuff works. Salting your front door doesn't work. But dragon's blood resin, it's just a powder. You can get it in blocks, just grind it up. You can get a powder. And you burn it in a resin burner. It's and you open a little bit of a window, and what it does is it literally drives them out of the house. They cannot be there. And I have all these different tools that you can use. You start, building them up one by one. One of the very cool tools is from the Crossing Over Prayer book is the dark intelligence removal prayer. I suggest to people they write it out put it in a plastic sleeve and put it between your mattresses if you're having a lot of dark dreams or dark beings coming at you at night. It acts like this enormous protection. This book has a lot of tools for protecting yourself, enhancing your ability, and understanding what's happening to you, especially if you're an adult. I mean, some people wake up. I mean, it happened to me. You can see through walls and doors. And what do you do with this? What are the rules that you put that once you learn how to do it, all of a sudden you build your own routine and your rhythm, and then those things are an old memory now.
No, and I gotta ask, what is dragon blood resin made from? I mean, I can't imagine dragon blood is, actually what it comes from. Like,
Dragon's blood is from a tree in Sumatra.
okay.
It has a stem and it looks like an umbrella. And these trees are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old. And when you cut the bark, it drips.
Oh,
And they catch it in these balls. I mean, and they're like these globes, and then you crack them, and it's like a resin. And when this resin burns, this white smoke comes out. And we know this is true because the Catholic Church has used dragon's blood for 2,000 years. They put it in that thing they swing when they walk down the aisle. It's called a thurible. And they put dragon's blood in it. Sometimes they put frankincense and myrrh. I use frankincense, myrrh. I use dragon's blood. I use several of those things. There's a reason frankincense and myrrh were given to Christ at his birth because it's so powerful. Dragon's blood removes dark things like you can't even believe. Let's say you get an antique. You don't know if somebody who used the antique was murdered or there's karma attached to the antique, really bad karma or really good karma. It could be either one. You can clear it with dragon's blood unless it's horrific karma like Himmler's yacht, which was pretty terrible. Everybody who owned that yacht died or, family members died. It was horrible.
like kind of like the crying boy painting.
The what?
The crying boy painting.
Okay. If you have something
um,
that has a lot of darkness with it, it's
yeah,
really hard to clear.
there's a famous, I'll call it a story, but there's a famous tale of the painting of a crying boy that went through house after house, and every house that got put in, the house would burn down. And they finally took the painting, and I think it's locked up somewhere to this day still, or actually it might disappeared like 15, 20 years ago. I forget what happened to it exactly, but for most of the 1900s, it was going from house to house in England, and the houses would burn down like weeks after. So, and the
Well,
painting would.
I
Oh,
got a,
sorry,
I
go ahead.
got a, I'm not familiar with that painting. Was there any image of water or a mirror in it?
Possibly, I don't think I've ever actually seen a picture of it. But I've heard a lot of podcasts talk about it over the years, and it's a it's a famous paranormal story. That much I can tell you. I'm not exactly sure. I know it's from Europe, maybe Germany, maybe England. I know it's from one of those places. I want to say England, but I could be 100% wrong. If you Google "crying boy painting," I'm sure you'd find it.
I'll find it. The painting itself is a movable portal.
It makes sense.
Just wherever you put it, it's a portal. It's a doorway, and dark things come through the doorway, and they're using fire to create chaos and horror, and that feeds the dark side. If you understand how evil works, then you understand why that worked.
And the last thing I will say before we go is it's actually funny you said that about Sage and Palo Santo is because I was sent that by a Reiki I was working with, a Reiki master I was working with, sent me that to use in my house, and my wife used both of them throughout the house, and I had a podcast later that night with back when I was recording in the garage with a medium, and like I was talking to her about doing it on the show, about that we did earlier, and she's like, is that why there's so many ghosts behind you walking around like zombies? I'm like,
It doesn't get rid of anything. And everybody keeps saying, "Oh, use sage, white sage, bundles of sage. Just doesn't work. Doesn't have. It's great if you're making sausage or you're going to do a ceremony, but don't ask it to remove a ghost. It doesn't have the horsepower.
Yeah, I mean it's. I mean, yeah, I trust me. Apparently, it just makes it makes ghosts just get high, basically. So, and that's all it does. It doesn't make them leave. It just makes them get high, and maybe it calms them down. Maybe that's why people think it works, because it calms them down for a bit. So that might be where like the original rumor of it working came from. But maybe, I mean, I never thought of that, but that could be where the story began with Sage. But
Could
well,
be.
folks, I want to thank Tina for coming on, because it's always a pleasure to talk to her. We always hear such interesting tales of her life when she's on. I swear, it's like a never end. It's literally who anybody would want as a grandmother, because you could just sit there and listen to the stories your whole childhood and love it. I would be enthralled my whole childhood if that was my grandmother. That's for damn sure. But Tina, where can they find you? Where can they find all your books? If they want to reach out, or if they want to go look up the Crossing Over Prayer book.
Thank you. It's ghosthelpers.com, and all the books are listed on ghosthelpers.com, and they connect you to Amazon. They're available on Amazon in print on demand, Kindle, and Audible. So you can listen to them if you would like, all 9 of them. And I have the Ghost Helpers podcast on YouTube. Sign up for the channel, and when one is released, they're all free and there's no ads. So I think that's kind of a fun thing. And like on the website, there are some tools, and there are a lot of interesting prayers that you can use if there's been a suicide or a murder or a death. And then there's the Crossing Over Prayer book, which is also incredibly helpful with a lot of things that are happening in the world today. So, Jeremy, thank you so much for having me and letting me share some of these thoughts and ideas. And, people can agree, disagree, but at least, there's always resources out there that cover these things.
Exactly, and that's what the world needs now more than ever is, because we are in for some days ahead of us. I won't say dark days, but we're in for some days, and
That would be true.
resources like this definitely are going to help the world a lot. I think once a lot more people are going to be opening up their minds to this side of the world once stuff starts happening, and it's good these things are already in place for them. So, folks, I have a busy week coming up for you all. God, Paranormal Prime Time will be Friday, I think, this week. Maybe we're working on that. But I'll have 2 interviews for you Saturday, 2 interviews for you Sunday, both in a row, because I'm insane. And apparently. And I believe I got 1 or 2 next week, too. So, yeah, Halloween week, I'm giving you guys a nice little present, since I haven't been doing much recording lately. So, come check those all out. And if you don't know where to find the show by now, God, why are you listening even? But it's all in the outro. Check it out. Find every place you can find me on the web if you so dare. And thank you, Tina, for coming on. And I will see you all Friday or Saturday at some point. So, till then, everybody have a good night, and try to sleep well tonight after some of the stuff we just heard. Have a good one.
Exactly.